Hi, OTL community. My name is Jacqueline Preston, and I teach for the Department of Literacies and Composition. In this presentation, I'll be discussing changes I recently made and changes I intend to make to an English 1000 course I'll be teaching this summer. These changes are a result of the Pathway 3 course I completed this semester through OTL. As I worked my way through the Pathway 3 online course, I was inspired to make a number of modifications to the course, the first of which was to include a welcome video. While I'd previously always included an instructor information page, in which I told students about my academic background and some of my interests, I realized that to give students a sense that there was a real person behind the screen, it's important for them to also see and hear me, not just read about me. I created and inserted the video in my new summer online course. I believe students will be much more likely to contact me if they see that I'm approachable and have a sincere interest in their success. So I wanted to make sure that I communicated this both verbally and in my body language. The second change, which I intend to make, is to clean up my navigation bar. I knew how to do this before, but I did not pay a lot of attention to it. I left tools in the bar that we would not be using in class. I'm motivated now to make this course as least confusing as possible, and this is a good start. The less students have to contend with, the better. Canvas can be overwhelming, so keeping it simple will help students concentrate on what is important and then not be distracted by unnecessary tools. This is a screenshot of what my new bar will look like. One other example of changes that I'll make to my online course is to include more formative assessment. I use a lot of scaffolding in my courses, low-stake assignments that feed into larger assignments, but I've avoided anything like a quiz or test. In the past, I considered quizzes as merely evaluative assessment, and therefore assigning writing was by far the best way to evaluate student success in the class. However, I'm starting to change my mind about quizzes. As part of the formative assessment assignment, I created an end-of-the-semester quiz which included questions about what elements were essential to move particular documents into a final stage of development. I used the quiz in my hybrid class, and I'm planning on adding it to my summer online class. The quiz achieves the sample results, the same results as a rubric, but it's much more interactive for students. The scores will not be included in students' grade, but students will be assigned points for taking the quiz. It's formative assessment in its truest form, and it will serve a number of purposes. The quiz will underscore for students what changes may need to be made to each of the documents included in the portfolio before submitting, and I'll have a chance to see what students may not be grasping and can make changes in the course to better suit their needs. I can't help but imagine this will help improve students' final portfolios and help them retain some of the more important information we've discussed this semester. This way, they can apply this not only to the work they'll be turning in for my class, but also writing they will complete in other classes. Creating presence in an online course is literally the point of departure for some professors. Many of my colleagues choose not to teach online for this very reason. I've never experienced this as a problem myself. In fact, over the course of a semester, I find I develop a relationship with students that is in many ways far more intimate than when I'm teaching face-to-face. This is due in part because this is a writing class. I strive to create assignments that ask students to tap into their history, experiences, and interests. I respond in detail and often, so this goes a long way in creating a social presence. However, this is just between each student and me. I've attempted to create a social presence among students, either through peer review or by creating discussion assignments, but I'm not confident that these assignments really do the trick. One example is an early assignment in which I asked students to create a mini bio using outside digital resources, PowerPoints, YouTube videos, Animoto, Prezis, etc., and then share these with their classmates through a discussion. This gives everyone in the class a chance to put a face and often some audio to the person behind the online discussions. The problem is that students don't always take time to look at each other's presentations. And even if I do require some responses, students only look at a few of these. I'm not convinced this assignment goes very far in creating a social presence student to student. I do have a few ideas I'd like to implement now, though. I believe these will increase social presence among students. The first change I want to make is to modify the mini bio and highlight the purpose. For example, quote, "We are doing this so we can get to know one another over the course of the semester," end quote. I'll ask students to keep this in mind as they create their presentation. In many of our discussion assignments, I'll ask for text responses, but when I do this, I'll insist that students include a link to their presentation. This will give students an opportunity to see and hear the person that has left the response. I want to do some additional research and include a link to the Screen-O-Matic Canvas feature on Canvas and create some assignments that ask students to create screencasts and voiceovers as a response to discussions. One final idea I have is to use the group function in Canvas. I'd like to divide students into small groups so that over the course of the semester they get to know at least the members of their group and form a community of sorts. I don't want these groups to be too small, so I'm thinking about 8 is a good number for a social group. For work groups, I'll divide this number in half, but it'll come from the original group of 8. One learning outcome in my course asserts that students will become familiar with and successful composing in electronic environments. To both teach and evaluate this outcome, I ask students to create a deliverable aligned with a written project proposal. Students have chosen topics based on their interests and personal experience, and ultimately, they're asked to propose a project that meets a need associated with this topic. The deliverable is an opportunity for students to use multimedia resources as a way of demonstrating knowledge outside the more traditional written project proposal assigned at the end of the semester. The multimedia deliverable includes both image and text, and students often include audio as well. Students are instructed to incorporate research completed in the library, to include information from interviews when it's applicable, to link to relevant social media, etc. My assessment is formative in that I ask students to give me a rough draft. Then I provide detailed feedback about revisions and make suggestions for changes so that they can move this into a final stage of development. There is a second assessment, which is evaluative. This is when they submit the deliverable to the final portfolio. This project is firmly grounded in students' personal interests and experiences. Students use work they've completed early in the semester, repurpose it for this assignment, and therefore it doesn't lend itself to them using other people's work. So I can preserve academic integrity, or they can preserve academic integrity. Students receive feedback on every major assignment and use the feedback to modify and revise before incorporating that work into the next assignment. Essentially, each assignment functions as formative assessment. The one activity I've not used in the past, which I will include in the deliverable assignment, is this Google form quiz, which I discovered in Pathway 3. The quiz will highlight the important elements of creating substantive deliverables and clear some of the confusion students may have about how the deliverable aligns with their written proposal. It also gives them a good sense of what's expected. Both assignments, when submitted to the final portfolio, that is the deliverable and the written project proposal, are treated as evaluative assessments. Perhaps the most significant strategy I use to ensure student success is including samples for each major assignment and many of the smaller assignments. Samples give students a sense of what is expected, and in many cases students can use these as templates for creating their own work. Also, I think my approach to grading enhances student success. I assign many low-stakes assignments, complete and incomplete, throughout the semester. These are what I call active learning assignments, and they feed into the larger assignments. This not only provides me an opportunity to walk students through a process and prompt critical thinking, but it also gives students an opportunity to submit rough drafts note whether or not they are heading in the right direction, and then receive feedback from me, which they can then use to revise and modify work before submitting it for evaluation. The strategies I plan to implement to enhance student success include adding more interactive rubric assignments and incorporating what I'll call purpose assignments. For my interactive rubrics, I want to move away from the traditional rubric for larger assignments and find methods such as the Google Form Quiz, games, or some other means that function similarly but are more interactive than the traditional rubrics. I'd like to do this for all major assignments. Another idea I have is to create the purpose assignments. These are low-stake assignments that help students zoom in on the purpose of a module or series of lessons. While each of my assignments includes a "Why this assignment" section, I'm not fully convinced that students read these. I suspect many skip over this section. I'd like to replace this with an assignment itself. For example, after providing a short video explaining the purpose of the module, how the pieces fit together, ask students to discuss the relevance of the upcoming assignment to either their topic or an even later assignment. Using the course design rubric, I evaluated my English 1000 online course that I'll be teaching this summer. I scored relatively high in all areas. Nevertheless, this process was particularly useful. I used the notes section to identify areas that need revised, and this functions nicely as a resource for me as I move through the semester. I'll make necessary changes as I go along. Well, I've always cared a great deal and had a passion for designing courses that truly work for students. However, the Pathway 3 course, I have to admit, has heightened my awareness about all that I've been overlooking. Some of the more practical aspects of the Pathway 3 course have inspired me to add elements to my course, add more formative assessment for some of the major assignments, use more video and audio tools for enhancing social presence, and include tools and language that add clarity, such as tutorials when using third-party tools. I'm reminded that simple interfaces, navigation sidebars, less text on the page, less busyness will help to assure that students are not overwhelmed. As I move forward, I want to continue using the course rubric and continually update my courses. I'm looking forward to implementing some of the ideas that have been inspired here. One piece of media that stands out in my memory would be the purposeful assignment video. Although I take a project-based approach, the video reminded me of why this pedagogy is so beneficial to students. I look forward to including the video in my summer course so that students can be inspired and understand better why we do what we do. It's been a fabulous experience. Thank you, OTL team.